Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the sports betting show brought to you by a real statistics professor. This is college basketball for Thursday, November 7th. The recap on the screen through Tuesday. We're recording this on Wednesday night, so we don't know how the Wednesday games are going. Cousin Jared, Jake and I did the first show. I don't think I mentioned it on the show. If I didn't, I meant to. Thinking about the thing I hate the most about that first night of college basketball is there's over 100 games jammed into a small window. We come on the show, we try to give out as many picks as we can without making the show like 5 hours or something. And we had a banner day on Monday, and the 8 picks we gave out on the show were subpar. And that's just like, it's randomness, of course, but that was frustrating watching that happening, but again, for everybody over on Dub Club, of course, the A grades, as you can see so far, we're already up to a sample size almost of 100 games or 100 picks, 17% ROI. And that's kind of the number here we try to focus on earlier because it's the bigger of the sample size. And that's what we mostly are going to pull our plays from. The top plays come exclusively from the A grades. And so, the top plays so far, 36% ROI. It's a small sample size, right? Yeah. It's just, but that A grades, that's a bigger sample size. And so far they are tearing it up. And that's really the main thing that we are focused on here. What is your take so far as we're through 2, kind of almost 3 days of college basketball?
It's good to have college basketball back as always. The totals, some of the overs have been interesting. I feel like maybe it was the COVID year. I can't remember, but the unders hit like 60-something% on night 1 of college basketball. And since then, I don't know exactly what has changed, but it's just like all the players and coaches are like, hey, no rules for the first game. Everybody just go out there and have fun. Because the teams are getting up and down the court, and it's really all over the map. You've got some faster paced teams that you would expect that from, but even some of the slower paced teams, especially the bigger name teams that might be playing a small conference school, they'll let them go out there and have some fun and not necessarily be clamping down on defense in those first few games. So just more points, I guess, is what I've taken away from the first week or so, first couple days.
And we talked about that. Jake and I talked about that specifically with the Baylor Gonzaga game, that Baylor in non-conference is a little bit more like, hey, let's go out there and see what we've got.
Yeah.
And
they were drastic last year. Once conference started.
Yes. And then conference started, it was like slam on the brakes. It was just a whole different team. We talked about that, off air for Wednesday night when we picked the over in the Columbia Villanova game, saying the same thing, that like Villanova, has been a team that in non-conference has like seen what we've got, let it fly. And sure enough, that game flew over. And then, conference comes and it's like, let's clamp down now. Let's play efficient, sort of thing. And so, we're seeing a little bit of that here. It's been a good start. Hopefully we can keep that going. And if you want all the picks, if you're serious here about this with college basketball, if you're betting 99, you got to be a serious bettor here because it's a lot. But the all access package, you get all those A grade plays, all the top plays, everything, Discord chat. We've got a great community over there, projections, probabilities, price thresholds, all sorts of goodies and all sorts of sports detailed notes, which are very helpful if you're diving into a game. We've got that link in the description. We'll still get you the old pricing. You've got less than a week to jump in on that old pricing before it stays at the higher rate. The only place you can get that pricing is that link in the show description. Half off your first month as well as just an added bonus for you here. And if you're looking for just a college basketball package, that's available as well over on Dub Club. You can find that college basketball only package for a little bit cheaper. Get the full season of that and then don't have to worry about it. And then boom, you're ready to go again next year when we hop back into it. So a lot of good things over there on Dub Club. Some quick reminders about the model. We call it sidelined. It's player-based, so ratings reflect the current roster. Because that really matters. We already had an injury, an unfortunate one here in St. Louis with Robbie Avila going down. Massive adjustment. One of the biggest adjustments I've ever seen the model make, simply because of how good he is and how little depth they have once they get to the guys who are going to really have to replace him. You can't just say the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5 are going to replace those numbers because someone else has got to be on the court. They'll replace some of the shots, but you got a big injury there. And so again, that player-based model is impactful as we have injuries. Unfortunately, we will have more. The average rate's 100 higher, implies more points. So offenses want to be higher. Defenses want to be lower. We are projecting an average game, one game, especially in college basketball. We have to remind you this. We have no idea what's going to happen. Weird things happen. This is all about the long run. The bigger the sample size here, the better to decrease our variance on that. We are looking at the big picture, one game. We are not promising anything in one game, and anybody who does, you should demand your money back or just not spend your time on them, especially to play college basketball. But the big picture, long run, we have a well-calibrated model, and that's what tells us that 55% winners actually will win 11 out of 20 times and lose 20. We like that they lose 9 out of 20. Why is that? Because that is what tells us what is a good price. And so that's how we know what we've got good value on. The model gives that value out as A, B, or C, love, like, or lean. We choose the plays. Let's get to it. Handful of games here on Thursday. We're going to start off with Southern Miss and UAB. This game tipping up at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. UAB falling in their first game, big favorites here at home. In the second game, even though that UAB offense struggled in game one, we don't think that that's overly a cause for concern. I think, Cousin Jared, I think you have some reasons why that's the case. We're going to go over 150.5 B grade pick, as the model says. This should be a couple of points higher. We look at this as UAB's got the best unit on the court with their offense. Pace should be a little bit above average with regards to both teams playing a little faster. Because, Jared, why is it specifically that we aren't too concerned about that UAB offensive performance from the game?
Well, in this newfangled age of college basketball, it usually helps if you can shoot threes or make some threes. UAB shot some and made zero. They made 0 3-pointers.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, in that first game against Vermont, not something that you think is going to necessarily repeat itself. The other thing is, for a team like UAB, who historically has liked to get up and down the court, turnovers are a big part of that. They only forced 5 turnovers against Vanderbilt. Now, could that just be that maybe UAB has a problem, causing turnovers? Sure, could be. But one game, first game of the season, I'm going to say they kind of regress back to what they've normally done, which is go up and down the court a little bit more and kind of force some turnovers. The other thing that I found interesting, though, was this was UAB's first game with Vermont was a 1-possession game from 5 minutes left in the game until 20 seconds left. It was 1 possession the entire time. So neither team was incentivized to foul. And when you get to, especially later in the season, as the totals kind of get pretty sharper, I guess, those fouls at the end can make or break whether a game's going to go over or under. And that UAB game, there were no fouls to have. For as close as the game was, you would have thought there would have been more fouls, more free throws at the end. And it just played out that there wasn't. So all of those things rolled together. I'm not worried about UAB having a lower scoring game that first game out. I think they're going to bounce back and score some points against Southern Miss.
And we talked about that a lot last year, that we try to project to talk about correlations and with regards to if we think it's gonna be a closer game, how that's going to affect the total, a little bit more of a blowout, et cetera. And it's not an exact science because we can't predict exactly, right? But we kind of like to think about how the game will play out. If we think it's going to be a tighter game, we have to consider that as a possibility, that it might be so tight that there are no fouls. If we think it's going to be more in that 5 to 10 point range, that's the higher likelihood. Again, not to say that we can peg it right there, because again, it's very difficult to predict exactly what will happen. But if we think the probability is higher in that range, we have more likely to foul. So that's what we kind of are talking about here, that it's more likely to be in that 10-point range as we get to later on, which is either going to mean teams are just going back and, the team behind, Southern Miss behind by that much, going to be shooting quickly, which will help at least. Maybe some fouls. So we have a few extra ways we can sneak in some points. Over's been pretty good so far for the college basketball season. I don't think that's a blind trend that's going to continue. I've noticed, because I made the projections for day 2 for Tuesday before day 1 happened, and my projections and the sports books projections, as we got all that day 1 data in, every game jumped up like 3 points, it seems like. And so the books are adjusting, the models adjusting to what we're seeing with regards to, increased efficiency, blah, blah, blah. And so I don't think it's a blind trend to be followed, but in general, early on here, the over's been good. No reason not to try it here again. But as always, we'll shop around. That extra half point, full point might matter. We had a game tonight. One of our top plays pushed right out the number 144, and that was the number we gave it out at. So if you were able to find a 133.5, you're a winner. 144.5, you're a loser. Sometimes that really matters.
Yeah. I think we had a game the first night where on the show we laid 13, I think, and I was able to find a 12.5, and it game ended at 13. I won. We pushed on the show. college basketball, especially, man, just the better every, half a point matters.
Every bit that you can find can really matter. So make sure you have multiple books in your betting portfolio. You don't necessarily need 10. If you have 10, great, but at least have 3 or 4 different places where you can shop around and find the best price. If you don't have an account there yet, BetUS is a great one to add to your list of books that you have money in. 150% bonus on your first ever deposit, 125% on your next 2. Check them out today at BetUS. Southern at Iowa. Southern, not very good. Iowa, pretty good. We've got Iowa at number 18 in the country. Traditional Iowa team, weaker on defense, strong on offense, fast paced. But Southern likes to get up and down the court as well. And we've seen Iowa in these games. If possible, they try to get to 100, and the model's projecting them for 97 on average. So they like to play at the end. They don't, take their foot off the pedal, and that's part of the reason why we're comfortable laying it with them here. It's an A-grade pick to lay 24.5 with Iowa. Sideline says they win by an average of 31. Because this is one where we give this out to our people on Dub Club overnight. We record this overnight. By the time people are watching it in the morning, I don't know where this number is going to go, but it wouldn't surprise me if this number's out to 27, 28 or something higher in the morning, because it should be closer to 30 than the mid-20s, in my opinion. What's your take on this game?
The SWAC has a handful of schools, Southern, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Prairie View, A&M, that like to get up and down the court. And that makes for some entertaining games in conference play when those teams match up, or if you get like a really slow paced team going against them, you get some nice matchups there. It's not going to work against Iowa, unfortunately. I'm not breaking any news there. All that's going to do is play exactly into what Iowa wants to do, especially at home. We've talked about how good their offense is. Over the past couple of years, we've noted that their offense has been, a step better at home than it has been on the road. And so I just think this has all of the makings of a blowout, unfortunately, for Southern. I think Iowa is just going to score. You mentioned 97, 100 feels about right based on what Iowa has done historically in non-conference games early in the season. They just love to go and go and go, and I don't think Southern's going to slow them down.
Yeah, that crowd loves it. I've seen some of the ends of these games, and we've laid these big numbers. Just watch the last couple of minutes or something, and the crowd loves it when the backups are in trying to get.
Yeah, of course.
What else do you do as a college kid, right? On a random Thursday night. But yeah, it feels like if Southern, wants to slow things down, thinking that we don't want to feed into Iowa's pace, it's a game that they might score like 35 points in, because their offense is so dreadful. And if they don't score that many points, Iowa's got a really good chance to win by a bunch. If they play fast, all those possessions just means the differential is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's kind of like there's nothing they can do. I think they have to know that they have to. I mean, this is a bye game. They know they're going in there without much of a chance to win. They just want to go out there and have fun. And that should lead to a lot of possessions, a lot of points. And that's going to make it more likely for us to end up with a big win. And again, whether that big win is because Iowa wins, 80-35, or they win 100-60 is kind of irrelevant to us. We're going to lay the 24.5 8-grade play. And as a reminder, folks, we have on Dub Club where you can get the all access package, all the sports, all the information, Discord, etc. If you're enjoying the show and just want to support us, we would really appreciate you checking out the Picks Only package. It's $19.99 per month. You can get your first month for half off for $10 a month there. You can get a whole year for $99.99. It's just the picks, no extra details or anything like that, but just the picks and the grades. Every top play, 2 to 3 most days on a full slate of games. We got 6 or 7, and it's picks only for all sports. So you're getting all the college football picks, all the NFL picks, all the picks right there at a little bit of a cheaper price point. Check that out if you're enjoying the show and are looking for a few extra picks and way to get those top picks that, again, just seem to tear it up in every single sport, as our best bets do. Last game of the night we're going to talk about here, Chattanooga and St. Mary's, a 10 p.m. Eastern tip-off. St. Mary's has obviously been a team that has slowed things down. I believe in that first game, flew over, if I recall correctly, with regards to number of points. So far, we've got their offense and defense rated about the same, and they're going to not have a ton of points in general because that pace slowing them down. But when you have a team like Chattanooga, who's all offense, no defense, we're going to go over on this one, over 141.5. Cousin Jared, tell us more.
Yeah. So my thing with Chattanooga is they played USC in that first game, and very similar to what we saw with UAB. They just could not buy a 3-pointer. They shot 34 of them. So like clearly it's what their offense is predicated on is getting open threes. Unfortunately, they were only able to convert 17% of those, which, this isn't the NBA. You're not going to have guys knocking down 40 and 45% of their threes usually, but you could easily envision they hit 17%. They hit double that number, shoot between 30 and 35%, and that kind of looks different. So that's the reason why I think Chattanooga is going to score some points here. St. Mary's is kind of a very similar theme to what we discussed with some of the other, just some of our overall comments when we started the show. A team that has an identity. They like to play defense. They like to slow it down, as evidenced by the pace here. But that really comes more into account, in my opinion, once you get to conference. They're a little more, loosey-goosey in non-conference than they might be before conference play gets started. The other thing is, and like, don't get me wrong, St. Mary still has a good defense, but most people would have probably guessed it was better than 60th overall. Like if you would have asked me, I would have said maybe 35th or 40th, not 60th. So maybe just a little bit too much respect for St. Mary's defense in this one.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because, we've got two teams playing here on a Thursday that both played on Monday. Only one game, of course, under their belts. But you had one team that looked really good with regards to the over and one team that didn't look really good. And so depending on how hard you look and whatever, you can twist yourself into really talking yourself into one thing or the other. Number one, that's why we have the model to help really synthesize all the information we have and spit us out a projection, which again, this projection here more in the mid 140s, which is still slightly below the average number of points we've seen in college basketball games this year, versus the books putting it in the low 140s. But when you look at the, kind of averaging out, how much St. Mary's went over by, and then how much this Chattanooga game went under by, and then you combine that with some maybe unlucky shooting from Chattanooga, you find it more reasonable to think that this game can be at a pace and at a scoring efficiency rate to get us over the total. So I would encourage people, I'm not saying we want to ignore what happened in that Chattanooga USC game. Maybe we don't necessarily only want to think about that. We want to consider what happened in that St. Mary's game too. And if St. Mary's played that first game and it was that traditional Houston, Iowa State, what we see a lot of from St. Mary's, where it's like 53-42, then maybe, you say, hey, not going over this. But you see that first one and you say, yeah, Chattanooga, we still believe in their offense. We still don't believe in their defense. We think St. Mary's is going to be able to put some points. Chattanooga hits a few threes, keeps this game marginally close. Obviously, St. Mary's is a big favorite, but, maybe within at least keeping it, entertaining throughout the second half, can get us over the total in this one again of 141.5 8 grade play, as we've projected it at 146. Just a reminder again, that only picks package available on Dub Club. The promo code's there to get you some discounts off your first month or for your first year. If you've really been enjoying all of the baseball, college football, NFL, and college basketball stuff we got going, we got picks all the way around the year. Because Jared, parting words for the viewer for their Thursday.
It's lots of picks. The professor is doing us all a big favor here by giving us all of this information. If you're with us on Dub Club, you get the picks, the projections, all of the notes. I mean, just notes on notes on notes for every single game. So if you're serious about this, there is not a better bang for your buck with college basketball. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, very well said. I was curious too, because we showed at the start of the screen, start of the slides, the A grade picks and how well they've done. I know there are some people out there who play all the A grades, right? And they minimize their variance. I was just curious if you had any takes or any recommendations for people on that, because obviously it can be a ton of picks, but so far, if you've been doing that, you've been making quite a bit of money. What's your take on that?
Yeah, especially early in the season, like I tend to play most if not all of the A grades. As the reason I do that is because at this point in the season, I don't feel like I have enough data to know the strengths and weaknesses of the model. As the season goes on, I will know. We were actually one example where I might override sideline, though. We kind of talked about it before we came on here, where there's a team that's playing on Thursday night where the result was, it was one game, but the result was,
so bad.
It was so bad that we were like, we don't want to overreact, but this was so bad that maybe we should overreact. So early in the season, it's like those ones and twos that I'm kind of pulling in, and I'm going to use that. Once we kind of get to, the very end of non-conference, I'll probably have a good idea, and then things will change once conference play starts, and you kind of got to figure things out again, like you referenced with Baylor kind of becoming a different type of team in conference.
And they aren't the only one who
tends
to do that. And so, we'll continue to talk about that as the course of the season goes along. I just thought it was an interesting perspective, and we try to provide that for everybody. One of the biggest challenges I've had is, how do I get all the information to the people? How do I get it in a way that's digestible, that they can consume, that they appreciate, right? And so that's why we've kind of done what we've done. We've got the top picks where it's for people who just want a couple of plays, and our best of the best that tend to do better. And then what if you want a handful of more plays? You want even more than that. You got all the acres. So how do we handle? Because I know that there's a long spectrum of where you might stand with regards to number of picks you want to play. So show them all the different options that kind of suits what works for you, because we're just trying to be a tool in your toolkit here to help you in your gambling journey. So anyway, I thought that was good little discussion there. That's our show for today. We do thank you for watching. As always, we wish you the best of luck and remind you that you can eat your betting money, but please do not bet your eating money.